In the middle here.
All right. Fantastic. We are live. Everybody, welcome to another episode of Just Two Dads. Along with my co-host, Shawn Francis, I am Brian Altunian. And today we're picking up an ongoing conversation around mental health. And mental health's been in the headlines lately. So excited about having a lively conversation here. And we hope that you contribute and share with us here today on Just Two Dads. Awesome. Welcome back, everybody. This is Brian Altunian. I am Brian Altunian, along with Shawn Francis here for our weekly podcast of Just Two Dads, where we talk about a lot of things. Primarily, we've been focused on areas of children with disabilities and a whole variety of special needs issues. And one of the things that we've noticed lately is that mental health should be considered part of this large community. The reality is most of us are members of this community, whether by association, by relationship, or by eventuality. We're all members of the special needs. Probably more of us that have special needs than others. We're going to get into all that. Before I do, just want to welcome everybody. Hello, Joe. Welcome everybody who's catching us on Facebook Live here and also on our YouTube channel. Welcome. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel and comment and like and share and do all that great stuff. You can probably, you may be hearing us on Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts or iHeartRadio, Spotify, anywhere that podcasts can be heard. Welcome. We hope that you want to make a contribution to our conversation by emailing us or sending us. In fact, I'm going to put it up here on the screen. We're going to put up a little ticker symbol here. We're going to get into this. And for our family and friends down in the U.S. Virgin Islands, hearing us on WSTX AM radio, we welcome you as well. And look forward to seeing you all in person one of these days. You can hit us up on our Instagram. I'm at Brian Altunian. Shawn is at I am Shawn Francis. We are at Just Two Dads on Instagram or Facebook or anywhere on social media. You can find us all over the place, and look forward to interacting with all of you. Today's a special conversation as we're talking about mental health issues and the coming out of the pandemic, which doesn't feel like we're actually exiting as much as we're sort of maintaining a new status quo in the epidemic that has become the top of everybody's mind and in everybody's conversation these days. Mental health issues are getting highlighted because it's really creating a very ongoing discussion and exposing some vulnerabilities and some other issues. And we're seeing it in headlines with our athletes and celebrities and high profile folks as well. So we're looking forward to having a conversation about this today and continuing this. We started this last week and we want to continue this conversation because it's vital and it should be part of everybody's thinking, and we should be engaging in conversation as dads who, we talk about this from the perspective of having children with special needs and how that impacts us and how we process that information. Issues like mental health is also one of those things. It's a taboo subject that people don't like to talk about. It's stuff people don't like to go to therapy and discuss, like all those issues that men have this sort of prideful way of being that prevents them from actually getting help and seeking out support in these areas. So I'm looking forward to today's conversation. And as always, my friend, my colleague, my partner, we call each other our partners in Thrive because we hold each other to such high standards in everything that we do together. And I love working side by side with this guy. We talk more than I think we talk to most of our family members. As always, it's probably true. Shawn Francis, how are you today, buddy?
I am doing well. Very often our topics aren't chosen. We're the ones that are chosen by the topic. And throughout the course of doing this show, we've begun to say, there is no such thing as special needs. Everyone has the same needs. Everyone needs to know that they're seen. Everyone needs to know that they're heard, that they're loved, and that they matter. There's some people that, as a result of a diagnosis or a catastrophic injury or what is termed a disability, that person may have more of those same basic human needs, but it isn't a special need. You know, they may need an accommodation or with regard to, you know, a ramp for someone in a wheelchair or whatever have you, but it's all based on having the same needs. And so as we begin to try and the other intent of the show is to try and break down the barrier between special needs and neurotypical people, the mental health portion of it has presented us with what I think is a grand opportunity to redefine what that means. And it's made me do several things, which is that I've started to think, if we go back just a couple years, what is it that people did, you know, at that point in time when a light wasn't shined on what is taking place? So, and it's funny, I think that the universe speaks to you, and when it does, you need to listen. You know, I had a story that I saw the other day. I don't know how many of you might remember an actress by the name of Lisa Nicole Carson. She, in the 90s, was the epitome of a working actress in that she was on Ally McBeal and ER primarily at the same time. But she also had roles on film and like Jason's Lyric and a couple other things. So this is in the 90s. And when she sort of faded from the scene for a moment where she wasn't working as much, there were these stories that she had some kind of breakdown or something took place. And I had never heard her side of the story. And in the article, she talked about how when she was on Ally McBeal, somebody pulled her aside and said, you know, because she's naturally been, she said, she's described herself as a naturally outgoing person, almost to the point of like overly exuberant. And one of the traits of a bipolar individual is that they're very, very high when they're high, and then obviously very, very low when they're low. And she's naturally been always high, up there, outgoing. And somebody pulled her aside and just suggested maybe she get looked at because some of her behavior fell in line with bipolar, and she completely brushed it off. And she happened to go back home to New York for an event of some kind, and she was staying in a hotel. The hotel that she was at, she found herself screaming in the lobby, or not the lobby, I think maybe the hallway or something like that, trying to get into her room. And she had no idea why she was that distraught, why she was that upset. She got taken to the hospital, checked in and everything. And when she was finally diagnosed with bipolar disorder, she was completely blown away and trying to figure out, like, how is that possible? Where did it come from? And without being a doctor, I do know from some experience with, you know, a loved one that what happens too is a person can live with a normal childhood and signs not seen or, you know, or not there or undetected. And then things manifest later on in life, depending on what the situation is. But she claimed that, she said that took place. She went through several different treatments. And, you know, today she knows what medication works, what doesn't work, when to take it and everything. And she's good. And as much as she was seen in the late 90s, it's kind of hard to fathom that now she's out in auditions and that kind of thing. But that's because she's kind of come back around, so to speak. She didn't get the same response when she attempted to go right back to work. And this is, at this point, probably early 2000s. And so it's interesting what's happened there. And then, of course, we have the situation with Simone Biles. And I want to share what I know of what took place chronologically, because the other thing that takes place has been happening. Go ahead, Brian. You were going to say.
I was just saying, before you talk about Simone Biles, I mean, what you've just described with this actress and having a label of bipolar back in the time when that was a fairly new diagnosis, that's no different than somebody who's child diagnosed with ADD or ADHD
and it's not that long ago.
Right. Or autism or dyslexia, right? So people are afraid, they don't know what's going on. They're not sure whether they're not processing information in a certain way. And then they were giving a, you know, oh, well, that's because you're exhibiting signs of this. And then there's a period of time, I think, where that label became, some people believe that those labels become convenient to go, oh, well, that person's just ADHD. Oh, well, that person just has Asperger's. Oh, that person just has anxiety and depression, right? So, and oh, that person's probably bipolar, as a throwaway, as it like excuses behavior. So I think, again, the conversation that we're talking about is mental health diagnoses and mental health issues and treatments. It's very much along the lines of some of these other cognitive issues that our children have when they have these diagnoses as well. So I just wanted to kind of point out what you just described as I think a lot of parents of children who have ADHD will probably had experienced some of the same thing, or an adult. We've talked to Constantine Anthony, who was diagnosed with, on the autism spectrum as an adult. And he was like, oh my God, it made so much sense.
Right.
Why I had a hard time scheduling things, or my brain didn't process things properly. It's very much like someone's like, oh, bipolar. I didn't even realize that I had that. Well, how do I treat that? So anyways, I just wanted to point that out. It's very similar.
No, that makes sense. And before I kind of jump into the Simone Biles situation, the other thing is you hear people talking about the conservatorship case with Britney Spears.
Yeah.
And they talk about there's a free Britney movement. And when you talk about how restrictive her situation is, everybody's like, oh, she should be free. She should be able to make the choice and everything. Nobody's talking about, and this is where there's a teachable moment of a certain kind. I don't hear anybody talking about what her diagnosis is. And while it's obvious that she appears to be doing well, I don't hear anybody really talking about, that as well, how she's doing now, what she's able to do. Because if we do both, it solves a lot of mystery and lets people know that they're not alone, and can, eliminate some angst, because so you don't, it's her business per se, but everything else is kind of out there. I just think that people would benefit from knowing what the diagnosis was, why the conservatorship came into place to begin with, what does conservatorship mean, and why it is now that she's asking to be freed from it, because obviously she was in a bad place at some point in time with some of the choices that she made that were, public, and you could tell she wasn't well, and something took place to get from there to where she appears to be now. And those are things that people, can benefit from when and if someone is, able to share, that journey. And so looking at the Simone Biles situation, which is the most recent, and it's taking place on the biggest stage. I've looked at pieces of broadcasts, of the Olympics, so I didn't know in detail exactly what took place. So I guess what is known is that she, at the very least, talked about prior to the Olympics having, bouts of depression and everything, and it being related to the pandemic. Okay. And then there's a team competition, which I didn't see, but from what I understand, what we know is that when she performs, it's just, it's near flawless. If you think about the fact that just as people refer to Michael Jordan as the best basketball player ever, the greatest, which is subjective because of the way the game has changed over different eras and things like that, people have in a relatively short window of time come to commonly refer to her as the greatest gymnast of all time.
Yeah.
Which means that to do that, she has to have played hurt or competed hurt. She has to have put in a lot of hours and a lot of time. And she has to know what it's like to get out there and do it, even when she doesn't feel like it. With that said, she apparently faltered in her performance in the team competition, and in the middle of that competition withdrew. And, you and I are into personal development. We tie it to our business and everything. And so we read the teachings and wisdom of a lot of different people. And I'm going to call a name. One of the people who I choose to do that with, especially taking in most of what he says, is a gentleman by the name of Tim Grover. Tim Grover's most recent book is a book called Winning. He was a personal coach to Michael Jordan, and later on became the same with Kobe Bryant and did the same thing with Dwayne Wade. And everything about what he talks about is kind of like, it's what we as a culture like to hear. The guy with the broken arm that showed up anyway and won and just pushed through. The image of Kobe Bryant, for all the guts and glory of, his high flying act and his crazy buzzer beaters and all that kind of stuff. One of the most endearing things in his career for me will be when he tore his Achilles, walked to the free throw line, hit his free throws, and then walked off the court unattended. I don't even remember if they won that game. So for me, who relates to that, tries to apply that in life, and and I always find that I'm tougher than I thought. When I heard that she withdrew, my first question was, wow, that's odd. Like, I wonder what's going on. And and then my statement was, it really must be serious, and I began to, I couldn't figure out what it must be, but I didn't have any judgment, but I did have a question. And I think everybody has a question, but I think too many of us have the question of, why would she do that? As opposed to, I wonder why she would do that. And the reason why I brought up Tim's name is because he made a post on social media with her image and her in tears. And it says, if you're, and I'm paraphrasing here, if you're going through hell on the road to victory and you quit, that's where you're going to stay. And considering what he's done with people in terms of mindset and everything, there's respect that I have for that. But, if we happen to be in two different locations in Los Angeles, California, doing this show, right? You and I are in no position to give details on anybody's mindset about an argument that could be taking place in Ohio, because we're not there, right? We don't know. So what might one know about her situation to have any kind of judgment on what it is that's taken place? I don't get that. And so I'm encouraged by a lot of the responses that I've seen from people that are standing by her, but there's a certain amount of vitriol that's taking place too with regard to her backing out, and people just like, oh, you just, it's something that can unite us, but it's also something that brings about some division, which we're in the middle of as a country right now more than ever.
Yeah, no, I agree, and she's on a grand scale because it's obviously we're in the middle of the Olympics, and she is a world champion, and she has performed, just amazing feats of skill, and so that's why it's on everybody's mind right now. It follows Naomi Osaka in tennis, who wouldn't deal with the press after an event, and partially because of the mental process that she goes through is in answering the questions. And I think so none of us can really opine on their experiences unless they've been in their shoes, right? And Tim Grover may have been a coach of basketball players, but unless he was a gymnast, I don't think, he can talk about, athletic mindfulness and athletic, how an athlete processes information. But unless you're spinning and doing 2.5 rotations in the air and landing on your feet, you have no concept of what it takes to do that, and you have no idea. And so the reality is,
go ahead. I'm just going to say, I'm sorry. The other thing I'm thinking as you're saying that, and even realizing what I said, is even if you've done that, right, and that's you're on the team with her, her skin, her shoes, that's not yours. You don't know. It's just like there's certain things that we can agree upon what it means to raise a child with autism, but at the same time, how we react to situations depends on who we are, and who we are is determined by our experience, our life experience altogether. So I don't know what her situation is like, even if I was on that team.
Right. But I will say this again: the fact that the team is rallied is because the team has an understanding of what she goes through and what she puts herself through. They're not in her skin, but they have an understanding of what it takes to be performing at the level that she performs at. And I think that all of us who sit in our chairs, on armchairs, and do armchair quarterbacking, we have an opinion that, again, to your point, no foundation for which we make that call. That's the first side of it is, listen, any athlete who has had any sort of physical, has been impacted physically, right? Whether it's a batter in baseball who got hit in the head with a pitch, that is going to be in their head for a long time. You can't therapeutize that out of your head. If you've been a pitcher and you've pitched the ball and you've got hit in the head with a line drive coming back at 120 miles an hour, you can't compartmentalize that away, right? That experience is there. If you you know, the conversation about Carrie Strug during the Olympics, who, you know, limped to the vault after clearly, you know, injuring her her leg to such horrific levels, right? And then her coach telling her, just, can we do it again? Can we do it again? Can we do it again? Right? You can't then expect that person to perform and not have that have an impact. It just does. Right. It just has an impact. So for anybody to sit in judgment around the decision that she makes one way or the other is, frankly, you know, it's ridiculous, honestly. And I realize I'm taking a position here, but that's insane. That's insane. Unless you've done it, you don't know. And operating at the highest level of your profession or of your athletic performance, and then having other people expect it, that's the first. The second piece is that is what they deal with on a regular basis. The fact that Naomi Osaka didn't want to deal with the press is because if you've ever listened to any press conversation with an athlete or a coach after any performance in any sport at any time, I am blown away by the inanity of the questions. I don't like the fact, I mean, I couldn't imagine being an athlete and having to hear the same most, you know, absolute ridiculous questions, even the ones that are supportive. You know, what do you think about what was different today that you brought your A game and you succeeded? What was different? I don't know. I brought my A game. Like, I don't know. Today, everything was working. The vibes were all like, I don't know. Why would you ask that question? Like, why? Yeah. What did I do different? I'm a professional athlete and I do what I do every day. Sometimes the performance results in a win. Sometimes it doesn't. I'm not doing anything different today than I've done before. Why are you asking me this question? Right. So there's two things. One is just the physical feat. And the second is having to, could you imagine anybody who ran a company to, at the end of every day, have to put up with press, you know, scrutiny? Hey, Shawn, you know, your company, you know, you said sales were going to be, you know, X, and it actually was like X minus 5, you know, explain what happened today that was different today than yesterday. Can you please explain what was the difference in your performance? Could you imagine if anybody had to deal with the kind of scrutiny that our professional athletes have to deal with, you know, on a regular basis? And it's for our entertainment, you know, for sure. And I just want to touch on something that she said. She said, I just don't trust myself as much as I used to. I don't know if it's age, but I'm a little bit more nervous when I do gymnastics. I feel like I'm also not having as much fun. And I know that this Olympic Games, I wanted to do it for myself, and I was still doing it for other people. So that just hurts my heart badly. Yeah, for sure. That's not to be ignored. I mean, those are her words. And so, you know, again, you have to wonder what was different before, but it's obvious that she doesn't even know herself. For sure. And we don't know what's happening behind the scenes. By the way, not only have we lived in a global pandemic here, but the conversation about the impact of the pandemic and illness there in Tokyo, there are no fans in the stands. So clearly it's serious enough still in Tokyo for it to impact the ability for them to have an audience, a live audience. So they're not doing that. So it's there. All the protocols, there have been teams eliminated. There have been teams sent home. There have been people who have, so clearly that has been pervasive for the last almost 20 months still exists there. And these athletes are expected to perform at the highest level, even with not proper protection. So we don't know, as Shawn said, we don't know what's going on in the backgrounds. We don't know what's going on behind the scenes. We don't know what's happening, and we don't know what's happening in the head. The bottom line is that for people, as to your point, for somebody who is in a position where they have followers or they're a center of influence where they can impact other people, to take the position that as if they know what's going on and to make a judgment of somebody else is not only is it unprofessional, it's unethical in my opinion. And it's irresponsible. It's irresponsible. Yeah, 100%. It's because, and what it is doing is urinating on your privilege. That's what it is. That's what it is. And I'm sure Tim's not the only one. He just happens to be a person I hold in high regard, and I know of what he did in his words. And that is urination on your privilege, because when you have a platform whereby you can empower, impress, and uplift people
completely. You know, it's incumbent upon you to be responsible with it. You know,
Right.
and I don't even know if it's the feelings. It's because you could have done a better job of the way that comes across. And you know, as stated by Chandra Collins, who's on here, and thank you for tuning in. It's disrespectful, you know.
Yeah.
And the one thing that's interesting is I don't know how many people are saying what I was thinking this morning when I found out that, you know, within the last I guess it's, I don't know, 10 to 15 hours, she's now withdrawn from the individual competition.
Correct.
And my thought prior to her doing that was like, is she going to withdraw from the individual competition because she's going to wonder if people are saying, oh, so you're in it for yourself, but you can't be there for the team, you know? And then while I'm at it, you know, this is our show, our platform. We happen to have relationships with WSDX and the other platforms where our show is, that they allow us to sit here and say what we have to say. If I'm going to call out Tim Grover, I just thought of something. I need to call out then Megan Kelly as well too, because she took the same approach and took a shot at Naomi Osaka, because Naomi Osaka is featured in Sports Illustrated in the swimsuit edition, and Megan Kelly's position was, oh, so you can't stand, and you know, you can't stand publicity when you're being asked questions that you don't like. But essentially, if you're going to, you know, pose in a bathing suit and get some attention, then you're okay with that. You know, what people need to do is, you know, I don't know, people just need to treat each other right, man. Here's the thing. Here's the thing, because you just said something a second ago. Let's go back to Simone Biles for a second, because you know, when we did talk about news personalities who take certain positions. I mean, we could talk about that all day long. And we don't want to give them any more than they deserve.
No. Yeah. But you're sitting thinking, wow, I wonder if she's going to, you know, if she's going to withdraw from the individual as well. It's not team, but the bottom line is, if she chooses to withdraw, that's it. She chose to withdraw. It's her choice. Yeah. It's her body. It's her. It's what she's going through. If she felt that she wasn't, isn't it interesting? If she had broken her foot and couldn't perform, nobody would say anything. Oh, she broke her foot. But she is feeling some anxiety, some depression, some mental issue that's not a physical limitation, but it's and that can be questioned, right? People can call that into question and go, well, you know, oh, it must be her, you know, her agenda. It's her personal, you know, it's her personal reason. Which, by the way, if she chooses to withdraw for whatever reason, that's on her. That's hers to do. We don't have anything to say. It definitely is not. It's some people are saying, again, it's this weird sense that we're going through right now with this pseudo, you know, this patriotism thing. Like like somebody's personal withdrawal from this, as if it takes away from patriotism. And I guarantee you, if you watch the performance, if you see the performance and look at what happens when she lands, by the way, she doesn't stick the landing. You know something's not right. That's not what she does. There's something that happened for her to perform on the level that she's consistently performed at, and then in the middle of a twirl. By the way, they call it the twirlies, because literally in the middle of that, if you get I would say discombobulated. That's not the term, but if you lose some cognitive, you know, you have some cognitive dissonance in the middle of that, it can be incredibly detrimental and incredibly harmful and incredibly injurious. You could see when she landed that something was wrong. So if she decides to withdraw from it, that there's something wrong. To take the position of she's doing something because of patriotism or what, anything other than, my God, there's something wrong. And let me just finish this last comment and we'll go back to it. Like, take that with anybody who is dealing with a mental health issue. For you to sit in judgment and go, man, that person is blah, 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 in judgment without understanding there may be something wrong, that they need help. That's the position we should be at. This whole idea of empathy and love, like they take the position of, oh my gosh, I hope she's okay. I hope he's all right. Anyways, there's more to talk about on that. I'm going to get to something on that as well. That's what I was going to say, being the king of tangents that I am. We compete for that. But I was saying that I don't know if anybody I hadn't heard anybody, and I'm sure it's out there, with wondering what I was thinking this morning, which was like, you know what? I wonder if she is okay. I wonder if she's okay.
And if you watch her a lot, like you said, I didn't see it, but if you watch her a lot and you see that what she does is just so flawless, you don't just wake up one day and have an issue. And we need to stop talking about, maybe we need to get rid of the term mental health, because health is health. Whether you're talking about a gallbladder, your ankle, your finger, or your mind, health is health.
It's true. It's true, but there is a distinction between mental health, physical health, spiritual health,
and emotional health. Yes.
Emotional health. There are, if you're, by the way, we always talk about things in terms of, your body, your heart, and your soul. More in there, right? So body, heart, and soul is exactly that: physical, mental, emotional. All of those things do come into play. It's just a distinction. Correct. Robert says it. It's just about wellness, right? How do we make sure that people are taken care of, and that we're not rushing to judgment about somebody because of something that we watch or we see, or worse, we have some pundit who sits in a studio and being fed information into their ears that they then repeat, that has nothing to do with what's happening with the individual.
That's why, you and I talk about sports, right? It's funny because I look at, we should all be given the chance to evolve, because my brother and I were talking about this the other day. Sports is almost the only thing, I guess maybe politics too, where, a person who has never dared to even attempt to fail at that which someone is successful at, right? And have an opinion that they can give in so passionate a manner that you think that they're paid to give it. Think about all the big belly guys in a barbershop or at a water cooler or at a job, or somebody sitting on their couch or whatever, that has an opinion about an athlete who is in the top 5% or less of those that are gifted in the world, and might be amongst some that are maybe even a little better and has a struggle. And you have this very public criticism of their attempt to even do something like that. And that's without the mental illness. Then when you add on top of it, the matter of mental illness, then, it becomes exacerbated. And like you said, we accept somebody's, ailment of any other kind, but that, okay, so you broke a bone. Okay. That's all right. You have the flu, that's okay. But you're not happy. You don't feel right emotionally. What does that have to do with anything? Just go do it. Which is, ask questions. Questions are the things that are so much more powerful. And this isn't to let anybody off the hook, but we have a history of making more judgments than asking questions. And there's not just a stigma around mental health, but there's a lot of things that are unknown, and, in terms of what somebody carries and how it affects their ability to function. And there are things that we need to learn about what that means, what it does, and then how it impacts someone's ability to do any job that is on a grand stage where everybody's just sitting watching and, has an opinion.
Let's talk about one of my favorite subjects to talk about, because I think people feel like they can relate to it. I used to watch Tony Robbins, and Tony Robbins does this thing, and he talks about, he asks his audience to raise their hands. So there's athletes are one thing, right? And we're getting a lot of comments, which I love, by the way. And we're going to get to these comments here in just a second. But Tony Robbins asks his audience, he says, how many people here loved Robin Williams? Not liked. Don't raise your hand if you liked Robin Williams, if you liked his humor. Like, if you loved Robin Williams, like if you felt like he was like part of your family, he was in your living room, he was relatable, all that. You loved Robin. Like, raise your hand if you loved Robin Williams. Right. And people would raise their hands, and he would say, what's amazing is that I go around the world and I ask that question. And there are so many thousands of people who actually loved Robin Williams. And then he goes on to talk about Robin Williams taking his own life. And he talks about it in terms of fulfillment. Robin wasn't fulfilled, right? Robin, and again, by the way, they had a relationship, and that's Tony Robbins' perspective on what Robin Williams was experiencing. Tony doesn't know what Robin Williams was going through. As it turns out now, a couple of years later, we're finding that he had a diagnosis, and he was struggling with a mental health diagnosis. He had a mental health issue, and he did not see a way out. It's not about, I'm loved by so many different people, and that's not fulfilling enough to me. So we all have to go find fulfillment in our lives. He had a diagnosis of a mental health crisis, and he was struggling not only with the mental health issue, but the diagnosis as well. And so we all sit on our couch. Who said Robert Coward sit on the couch? Takes a brave person to just be out and trying. They have more heart than the couch critic, little or big people. So shame on the potatoes. I totally agree. By the way, Tim Grover's not a couch potato. He deals with athletes all the time. And even then, still, he's making a judgment about something of which he doesn't know specifically and directly. And I would say there are probably people who deal with Simone who doesn't even know all the extent of what she is dealing with. So to make a decision about it, it's irresponsible to articulate it out there and put it out there in the universe for people to go, oh my God, look at that person. And we talk about athletes who are, who win championships as having a heart of a champion. Oh, that person's got a heart of a champion. They play hurt. Yeah. That person wants it more than the other person, right? Well, that's what I'm saying.
That's the story we love. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. We love that because it gives us hope. Okay, if I just want it more, I can succeed at anything. If I put my heart into it, I can succeed at anything. And personal developmental, deals a lot with Think and Grow Rich and, power of, the law of attraction and the power of affirmations and, all of that stuff, which is if I continue to put into the universe good, positive, uplifting things, I'm going to be pulled forth. And so there is a body, heart, soul connection in all of that. But to say, well, that person's no longer operating at that level. His heart's not in it. How many times have we heard that? His heart is not in it, right? Mm-hmm. Simone, maybe her heart's not in it. Naomi, maybe her heart's not in it, right? The reality is it is a full connection. It's your heart, it's your head, it's your soul, it's your physical body. And if there's something that is impacted, you're going to have difficulties operating at the highest level of performance all across the board, and you need support and you need help. And our special needs families are dealing with the same issues. Somebody who has a cognitive processing issue or a stimulus processing issue, or even take dyslexia where words come at them differently than they do for other people, mm-hmm. right? It's not that they don't have heart, they don't have desire. They need support. They need help. And our, to make this world a better place. And again, we're sitting here in some judgment, like that we're making the world a better place. Like we all should be, our first thought should be exactly what you said, Shawn. Our first mm-hmm. thought should be, boy, I hope that she's okay. Does she need some support? I hope that she has support around her. Does she have help? Is there a way to get her, back to, being
and the bottom line is this, like we always talk about, which is, let's get childlike, okay? And be a little less childish.
Correct.
Right? We come into this world as close to perfect as we're ever going to be in most cases. There's so much to learn from the children that are around us. The children are it sounds like I'm in the recording studio for We Are the World or something like that. But the children not only the key to tomorrow just because you bring them up and show them the right way and, all these kind of things. But the truth of the matter is, a child's curiosity is the key to the world being saved. Because if we got a little more curious, we'd be like, put it this way, if we're going to arrive at the point that she's, wrong for this or wrong for that, or so, get some knowledge. And the way you get it is by at least asking a question and going, well, I wonder what the heck is really, really going on. I mean, is she okay? What is she experiencing exactly? And if her response, which it already has been, is I don't know and I'm trying to figure it out, then shut the hell up and let's figure out what it is that's going on. And let's do that with everybody, out there. Sorry.
I agree. And it's funny. And I love that we're getting comments today. I know this is a subject because it's on everybody's mind. And by the way, here's the thing. It's okay. It's okay to get help. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to get the hug. It's okay.
It's more than okay. You have to ask for it. And then we need to ask people to raise our consciousness. I'm sorry, I'm cutting you off.
No.
Pay more attention. And if somebody doesn't seem right, make them feel okay for asking for help, because you are giving the impression that you even give a damn and you're just wondering, hey, is that person okay? I wonder. In other words, here's the thing. When we see people, whether it's, and about it as a parent to a child with special needs when somebody looks at you sideways when your kid's having a meltdown or whatever have you. It's okay to wonder. It's okay to ask. What matters is how you do it. So when you see somebody and something doesn't quite seem right or whatever, you know, get your stuff together and go ahead and ask, hey, is everything okay? You know, are you all right? And that's all it takes.
Well, and the reality is anybody who's struggling or suffering, they want to still be included, right? And so here's the thing about this community that we are members of, and part of our podcast, you know, on a regular basis is to talk about expanding our community and talking about the needs of the community. And I will say that most folks in the community, in this community, deal with inclusivity versus exclusivity, and that's the biggest challenge, right?
It's everything.
Right? Your child does not fit in with this, hence remove them from the location, right? Oh, in our restaurant, like your child is disturbing other patrons, so please leave, right? It's exclusive, and so most families who deal with special needs issues just want inclusion. Right. And so and they're okay with having somebody come up and ask them the question, as you just said. They're okay with somebody saying, is everything okay? Do you need help? What's wrong? What's happening? Is there something that you can that we can help you with? Right. So yeah. You know, they're okay with being asked because they feel like they're being included. Right. They feel like they're not being excluded or separated or pointed at or, you know, judged. Right. And so anyways, the whole point of what you're just saying is that, you know, this conversation is of accepting, asking for, accepting help, and getting mental health in line. And again, as many of these comments that we're getting today are talking about, right? Why is it more acceptable for somebody to back out of a competition because of a physical issue, but not a mental issue? Is because we can't all relate to that. We can all relate to a broken arm. I've never had a broken bone in my body, by the way. So I can't relate to I don't know. I mean, I can empathize, but I've had my child has been in a cast with, you know, issues with just growing bones in his foot. No, but I've never had that. So I can't relate, but I can empathize. And at the end of the day, that's the issue, is that I can't relate. I have never done a twirl or been on a vault. I can't imagine what that's like. But if it's become a challenge where in midair, you can see the dislodging, I can empathize with that and go, oh my, I've never had that happen before, but is she okay? Yeah. Is everything okay?
And I got to tell you, so perspective is everything. I know the days where I go for, maybe this is age related, where I go for a walk, right? Or even a full on workout or whatever. The days that I don't feel like doing it and I do it anyway, I always feel better that I did it. So my takeaway is that I always feel like, you know what? You're always capable of more. You're always capable of more. But I've been blessed with good health all my life. So I haven't had like a real situation to worry about, you know, looking at athletes in general. Oh my gosh, what is Paul's last name? Forward, Clippers, played with Indiana. Paul George.
Yes,
Paul George. Okay, so he, you know, is a tremendous athlete, a tremendous basketball player, and it just so happened that in the situations where the light seemed to shine the brightest, up until the season in particular, he would have performances that were the poorest. And of course, people would have opinions that were the loudest, right? And so they go on over and over and over, and just like, oh, he just, you know, can't handle the big moment. And then you come to find out that he, much like Kevin Love, and I think a couple other NBA players admit that they've dealt with depression. And I'm not just sitting here saying, have compassion, I'm a caring person and you're not, because when he was one of the first athletes that when they talked about depressing situations, I was kind of like, I wonder how that really affects your game. I mean, you're kind of, because the converse was in Kobe Bryant's situation, he was dealing with his trial and everything. If he's got depression, getting to the court and having the game on the line with all these people and the eyes on him was actually an escape from whatever his challenge was, right? But and everybody applauds that because, again, you know, that's a person of valor and, you know, what a warrior. But everybody is different. I'm saying all that to say that my question with Paul George's situation was, I was kind of like, I don't get that. You can't put that aside to play a game of basketball. Like, I wonder how bad it is. So I didn't just get to the evolved, gee, I wonder if he needs help. I wonder if he's getting the help that he needs. My first question was just like, I don't understand that. How is that so? Well, I mean, if it's that bad, he's getting paid to do that, which he probably, I'm assuming, he would do for free, because people, that do that at that level generally love it. How bad is it? So all I'm saying is that if I can get there, anybody can, because I wondered the same thing as well. And the questions have to be asked again, which is, what is it that has that person in that situation? What could be so bad for them to do that? And again, we live in such quick judgment of other people and don't, everything we talked about in terms of the inclusion, that's what everybody wants. That's what the person at the top of the heap, everybody wants that. And we all deserve that. So if we ask the questions, we get closer to that.
Right. Right. And Chandra's making a comment about, innate sexism and racism, even at the highest levels, which, by the way,
I'm glad she said that. Because I wondered, I even told my wife, it's like, I wonder how different it would be if Simone was not Black.
Right.
As well, in terms of responses, because not everybody's going to come. And how different would it be were she a male?
Sure. And so, so imagine either of those two things happening, not Black, not a woman. Would the outrage, and it's not really an outrage, but would the comments be different, right, for her?
And for some people, they kind of have been, because if we think of male athletes, I don't know if I can get anybody off the top of my head that has stepped away as a result of mental health. I haven't. Well, granted, the Olympics is a different stage, but still,
I would say Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods has had outside influences that have impacted his game and have changed. And he's had physical and mental issues that he has dealt with over the course of the last several years. And he has changed his game. He's changed the way he plays, and he has had a lot of outside stuff that has impacted his game. So I'm answering your question, right?
Yeah. There are examples.
There are examples when it does happen. But I will say this, because here's the thing, to your point about both the sexism and racism, those are two hot button topics that have at the exact same time risen to the forefront of headlines and discussions at the same time as the pandemic, at the same time as other social unrest has been going on around the world. There's a lot of stuff that's coming to a head. And so those issues just become more poignant and more, directed. And so, yes, is there a part of it? I'm sure there's a part of it. And by the way, I think she's right. It's at every athletic, level. Elite athletes they don't get to escape it either. Venus and Serena Williams have been dealing with that for the longest time in tennis. Somebody made a comment about Federer and Nadal. Nobody questioned them when they backed out. Champions who backed out of a tournament for one reason or another. Nobody really questions it. I'm sure that nobody said, "Oh, he's defiling the country and our patriotism to our country because he backed out of a tournament." I mean, it's just kind of insane. Ryan Lochte got busted for pot, and the track star that got qualified. Nobody's asking the question. And by the way, again, I love that we're having this conversation. I thank everybody for contributing. And Sean Hall, our producer out there in Hawaii, has been making comments, and Joe and Chandra, thank you guys for participating in this conversation, because yes, you're right. All of these points are great points, and they should be part of our discussion. And Sean and I are really just creating a platform to just continue to engage in these kinds of conversations, because the world is changing. We're in the great reset. I keep calling it the great reset because people are trying to figure out what they want to do with their lives going forward. They want to go to work in the same kind of company or do the same kind of activity that they did before for an income, and living, working from home and not having to drive to work has changed the way we think about just how we live our lives. So those people who've lived at home or have been stuck at home, or they've had their children who couldn't go to school, and so they're home, that has had an impact. The socialization impact that our children are dealing with by not being able to. How about all those kids who missed on their senior year of high school, or the opportunity to
that applies to my daughter,
play at college level, right? A college level of athletics, or a college level of whatever it is. The final year, imagine for all of those that had the benefit of having our senior proms and senior events. That was an entire generation's missed out on an entire year of senior activities. That's at the high school level. But in middle school, what about the college? So it's going to have an impact, and probably something that's going to be far-reaching. And so our perspective is we have to figure out how to address these conversations, at least address these issues, and have these conversations, and not be afraid of them, and not be afraid to get into it with people who make opinions based on judgment that have absolutely no bearing in reality and no relation and no relatedness to what's happening.
Right. And it goes back to what you mentioned the other day. We were talking about a post that Gary Vaynerchuk made where he was, colorfully talking about having the audacity to, like, and these are my words, not his, but swim in and own your opinion and almost, and no one else's counts. That's where all the isms come from: sexism, racism, whatever have you, because the idea is, here's how I think. And if you don't think that way, not only are you wrong, and even though I know I'm not going to change your mind, I'm going to stand here and be belligerent and tell you how I feel and how wrong you are, just over and over and over and over again. With the exception of being kind to other people, treating people with respect and decency, we don't have to agree on everything else.
Yeah. I will say I love that. I love that clip. I've watched it several times. I've played it over, and I think it's a powerful conversation. First of all, he's very colorful in his language and how he communicates. So,
yes.
But he's very straightforward, and there's no holding back, and there's no BS with a guy named like Gary Vaynerchuk. And so one of the things that he said is, I have an opinion, and you have a difference of opinion. That it's not like I can be right and yours doesn't exist, or right? It's you can have both, because I'm thinking that somebody's difference of opinion automatically, eliminates or crosses out my opinion. That's people who live in a world of scarcity. That's people who live in the world of either or. It's either my opinion or yours. It can't be both. Right. And the reality is, the world is filled. His perspective: if you just add the letters M and E to the word "or," you have more. Right? So this is not about one or, it's more. You can have both. And it's funny because I don't know why I was doing this week, but just coincidentally, I was looking at quotes from Aristotle. Trust me, there was probably a reason for it. I'm not sure what it was. But one of the things he said is a sign of intelligence is somebody who can have two competing thoughts in their head and give them both validity.
Yes.
You can have two thoughts in your head that are competing and still grant them existence and grant them presence. You can do that. It's somebody who's like, right. Oh, my opinion counts and yours doesn't. That's somebody who is, I will say, a majority of folks who take their position in the news media and make an opinion based on a particular agenda. What they're promoting is non-education. Like, you don't have to go look it up. Just listen to what I'm saying. When the reality is, the more educated we are, the better we can understand. The fact that we have what's going on in the States right now and in our school system and eliminating history and historical facts, because we don't want people to have to deal with that. The true literal whitewashing of our American history, that's the opposite of the direction we need to be going in. We need to be going, let's educate with more information that gives you a broader picture so you can make an educated decision before you open your mouth, especially if you're in a position to be a center of influence for somebody else.
And here's the thing too. It's like the country is a large dinner table. Everybody's a family, or should be, right? And if you have certain topics that you just don't talk about at the dinner table, the children in that family are going to go have those discussions elsewhere, or be uninformed and get slapped upside the head by reality and run around being ignorant and living in fantasy. And that's what we've been doing since our very inception.
Yes, I totally agree. It's about more conversations. By the way, in our profession, the conversation about money is another one of those. People aren't talking about money, so they're not learning about money. So they're not getting educated on financial topics. They're not getting educated on the things that they need to be able to seek out answers. And the internet, which gives us access to more information than we've ever had before. The problem is it's good and bad information, and people are almost inundated. They don't know how to kind of sort through it all. So So the bottom line is, again, I think that as educators, we all take a role, take a hand in making sure that our people are looking for answers and not willing to accept something just on face value.
Right.
A few of the other comments, if Biles backing out, speaking up contributes to one person, especially one young girl of color, perhaps, speaking up and asking for help, then she did right. By the way, I'm just going to say it. Even if it was an adult, that's not a person of color. It doesn't matter if she's gotten somebody to go, oh my gosh, I need help. Obviously, I'm not taking away. She is a leading example for young girls of color to step out and be great champions. And she definitely has done that. But she's also set the bar and contributed to the conversation that mental health discussions need to happen and need to be dealt with head on, and not be shied away from, and not be quieted because of their being afraid of being judged by somebody else. Again.
Yeah. And I saw a comment earlier when I posted letting people know what we're going to be talking about. Someone that I know and respect and happens to be a parent to a child with autism who's now an adult. Their response was, well, you're not going to like my take on it. I'm old school and blah, blah, like, yeah, slavery is old school too. Women not voting is old school too. Right. You know what I mean? Right. Walking to school uphill both ways in the snow barefoot, not having a car is old school as well. Old school consists of a certain amount of ignorance also. Yeah? So we did what we did based on what we know. Let's know some more and get curious about each other and make the world a freaking better place.
Because the world is filled up with people that have a whole bunch of different, dealing with a whole bunch of their own issues. And Shawn, as you say all the time, there's no difference, right? There's no special need. It's just more of certain needs. We all have the same needs. Mm-hmm. And as we kind of wind this hour down, my God, I know we could talk about this for hours. And Robert always says, you need 2 hours, but I don't know if we could actually keep people engaged for 2 hours. But this subject, again, we did this a second week because we got so much feedback from last week, and we probably will continue the conversation. And the reality is we're seeing it play out in the headlines on a daily basis now. And so we want to have this conversation, and we love all of your contributions and love to continue to engage in this conversation, because what it does is, the thing that I say always at the end of our show is, because it shows that there are people who care about empathy and love and want to share that and want to give access to that and want to make sure that, before we sit and judge other people, that take a moment and think from a perspective of empathy and love. Can we make this world a better place without, in Gary Vaynerchuk's way, with this concept of more, not either or, but more. So thank you all for listening and for contributing today to this conversation. There's more to come on this. And we're going to bring other people who have had experience in having conversations, probably more, professionals, more professional than Shawn and I, and have a lot of experience in this space. But thank you for participating. Thank you for contributing on Facebook, and for those who are making comments on YouTube, and for those listening on Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts and wherever the podcasts are. Thank you for being a part of what we're doing, a part of this conversation, and a part of this experiment that Shawn and I do about Just Two Dads, just getting into conversations that should be had. It doesn't matter who it is. We should all be talking about this. Thank you, Robert, for commenting. Robert down in the Virgin Islands, where he's hearing us on WSTX AM radio, to our family down there. Thank you so much for letting us come into your living rooms and into your radios and into your cars and being a part of what we're doing. So, and I'm grateful to Shawn Hall in Hawaii for the work that does, my daughter Jo, and Shawn Francis. Always, I love you so much, my friend, and what a great conversation today.
Yes. Thank you. The feeling is mutual. I love you right back. I want to, again, thank everyone that chimed in and contributed, and make sure you share this. Make sure it's going to be up on the YouTube page as well, on, every platform virtually where you find podcasts. Share it with people, and then you can contribute to the episodes that take place. This show is for you. So we want to make sure that we hear from you in terms of the things that you want to talk about. And so I'll, close out as I usually do, by making sure that I thank two of the most important women in my life, without whom I could not even begin to be who I attempt to try and be. And that is my mom, Jan, and my amazing wife, Laura. And we're going to be touching on different subjects like this. We have our dates of September 17th and 18th for our upcoming Special Needs Summit. We're going to be covering a lot of topics. We're putting the final touches on it. And I'm going to, for those of you that are looking at this, I'm going to look a little deeper into the camera if I can, because I got a text message during our broadcast that just confirmed to me how right we are to do this, and how many more people there are out there that need to know that they're not alone. So remember, there is no such thing as special needs. Everyone has the same needs. They need to be heard. They need to be loved. They need to know that you matter. Because of a disability, diagnosis, or catastrophic injury, some of us may need more of those things than others, but everybody needs the same thing. And trust me when I tell you that you matter. And if you're watching this, we love you.
We love you. Thank you, buddy. Thank you, everybody. Looking forward to seeing you again soon, next week. Just Two Dads.
Thanks.